U.S. stock prices were again in the green last week. The S&P 500 rose 0.9%, the Nasdaq increased by 0.2%, and the Dow Jones jumped 1.6%. Thursday's U.S. CPI inflation data was the economic highlight of the week that markets used to provide clues for potential Fed rate cuts this year. The mainline number came in slightly lower than expectations at 3%, boosting the chances of 2 potential Fed rate cuts by the end of the year. The greenback fell against most of its rivals, while gold prices jumped to a 2-month high. Platinum prices remained above the 1,010 level, but palladium's price descended to a 2-week low. Natural gas prices continued their recent downtrend and recorded a 2-month low. In geopolitics, Israel and Hamas began a new round of negotiations on a potential ceasefire. In France, broadly pro-European left-wing and Macron's centrist parties came first and second in the final round of parliamentary elections. The shock news of the weekend was the attempted assassination of former President Trump, who is standing for re-election against President Biden. Trump traveled to the Republican convention on Monday after being treated for a light flesh wound, and is now clear favorite to beat Biden in U.S. November elections. On Monday, gold prices responded to the news by rising above $2,420, but the dollar declined by the end of the session. Fed Chair Powell made dovish comments at the Economic Club of Washington, and on Tuesday, U.S. retail sales data came in slightly above expectations. Netflix's price fell by 6% last week, dropping below $645 and hitting a 4-week low. The drop came after the stock hit a more than 2-year peak last week, amid reports of positive returns. It's been a positive year for Netflix so far, with better than expected results, and the announcement of deals with TKO Holdings to stage sporting events and the continued success of shows such as Formula One, Drive to Survive. The company also built on its subscriber base after cracking down on password sharing last year. Netflix will release its second quarter earnings on July 18th. Taiwan Semiconductor's price fell 1.7%, even though the stock hit an all-time high last week after positive returns before close of business on Friday. The value of the chipmaker stock has increased by $420 billion this year, and the company is expected to be worth more than $1 trillion soon. On June 11th, TSMC indicated that sales in the second quarter had increased by 40%, compared to forecasts of a 36% rise. The company will post its earnings results on July 18th. Crude oil prices declined by 1.2%, but remained above $82.1 after recording a 2-week low on Wednesday. It was a volatile week for oil, but a larger than expected fall in oil inventories wasn't enough to pare losses by Friday's close. Worse than expected data from China and somewhat easing tensions in the Middle East likely had an impact on crude prices last week. Gold prices climbed 1% by Friday's close and recorded another multi-week high, with the precious metal trading above $2,410. The week's boost might have been influenced by lower than expected U.S. CPI inflation and lower U.S. data throughout the week. CME Group's FedWatch tool states it's most likely that the Federal Reserve will cut U.S. interest rates twice by the end of the year. Wheat prices fell by 6.5%, with the commodity hitting an almost 3-month low last week, as prices fell to just above $550. The commodity declined after the U.S. Department of Agriculture released bearish July supply and demand estimates. Stocks rose substantially to 856 million bushels, while supplies also continued rising. The U.S. wheat crop is now projected to be its largest in 5 years, adding to an already oversupplied global wheat market. The euro-dollar moved higher and finished the week above $1.09, after the euro continued to strengthen following the unexpected third-place showing of the Eurosceptic National Rally Coalition in the second round of French parliamentary elections. The dollar declined after U.S. CPI inflation figures came in lower than expected, as hopes grew for 2 potential interest rate cuts in September and December.